With every step, your joints experience forces several times your body weight. Cartilage is what allows this motion. It acts as a cushion between bones, preventing painful contact of bones and enabling smooth movement. But when cartilage is damaged, things get more complex. Cartilage has a very low healing capability because it lacks blood vessels. Cartilage damage is associated with osteoarthritis, a condition affecting millions worldwide. In general, cartilage is an amazing material, withstanding enormous impact millions of times over a course of a lifetime. And conventional hydrogels just don't measure up to these demands because typically they are too soft, and this limits their use in load-bearing applications. This poor mechanical performance of hydrogels is rooted in structural defects, such as absence of energy dissipation mechanism or network non-uniformity. To solve this, I first focus on improving network uniformity to enhance hydrogel mechanics by using chemistries that allow excellent control over network architecture. To show the important role of network uniformity, I use Thiol-norbornene chemistry in Chapter 3. Two different categories of hydrogels were prepared using the exact same building blocks, including multi-arm peg alkyne and linear peg thiol, but they were cross-linked via two different pathways. A base-promoted thiol-Michael addition using PBS as a weak base, and radical coupling using a photoinitiator and light. I characterized the mechanical properties of these hydrogels, and as you can see, PBS-cured hydrogels, the green curves, had higher elastic modulus and also greater extensibility compared to the UV-cured ones. Quantification of entanglement density and crosslink densities obtained from data modeling also confirm that PBS curing yields better cross-linking efficiency and stiffer network than UV curing. But why? As I mentioned earlier, weak mechanical performance is rooted in structural defects. During gelation in PBS, reaction between thiol and alkyne functionalities is the most viable reaction pathway, leading to a more uniform network and better mechanics. On the other hand, several competing reactions can occur in the UV-cured thiol-line hydrogels, which reduces the mechanical integrity and also homogeneity of the structure. These defects or inhomogeneities can act as stress concentration zones, leading to premature collapse. To push this concept of network uniformity further, in Chapter 4, I developed robust hydrogels, but this time using Thiol-norbornene chemistry, where gelation happens in seconds under visible light exposures to give us these uniform structures. But besides the fast gelation kinetics and uniform structure, this system also offers tunable mechanics, meaning that with minimal modification to the system, such as adjusting polymer contents, molar ratio of reactive end groups, and also architecture and molecular weight of the building blocks, I can precisely tailor the mechanics. This allows me to not only target load-bearing tissues, but also a variety of other tissues. In tissue engineering, besides mechanics, we also consider delivery and fabrication of these scaffolds, which is crucial. This can be done by injection, which is minimally invasive compared to other traditional surgical methods. This minimizes patient discomfort, which for anyone who has had a surgery before, you know how important this is. Another approach is additive manufacturing or 3D printing, which allows for patient-customized structures with high precision. Using CT scans, we can generate a 3D model of the defective area. This is then converted to a CAD model, which allows us to form these patient-customized structures using different 3D printing techniques. There are different 3D printing techniques out there, but among them, light-based methods stand out because they allow us to control the scaffold fabrication process using an external trigger, light. There are also various light-based 3D printing technologies, each with pros and cons. One example is digital light processing, or DLP. Here, the scaffold is built layer by layer by moving a build platform along the z-axis. We can achieve high resolution using DLP, but there's a downside. It's slow, because each layer has to be printed one at a time. To solve this issue of slow layer-by-layer fabrication, there's a new technology, volumetric printing. Here, a rotating vial filled with a photoresin is exposed to a series of dynamically evolving light patterns. When the accumulated energy dose locally exceeds the curing threshold, the entire structure forms at once within the volume of this rotating vial in just seconds. Sounds easy, right? But a lot of optimizations are needed to get it right. The photoresin should be transparent with high viscosity. It also should have a fast gelation kinetics, but also a nonlinear response to the light illumination. This is to get a better contrast, a clear contrast between cross-link and uncross-link parts, and to get better resolution. To achieve this, I use a radical scavenger, which is called tempo, to increase or prolong this initial induction period. Another important parameter is the light dose, which should be precisely selected. Too much light results in overcuring and loss of detail, but too little results in weak structure. Volumetric printing in general is very powerful. It allows for scalability, meaning that I can print multiple of the same structure at the same time. Like all these 8 disks, I printed them at the same time in less than 30 seconds. They are also very robust, meaning that I can compress them to 90% of their initial height multiple times, and they don't break. They remain intact. Volumetric printing also allows for structural complexity and design freedom. We can print all these complex geometries without any supporting elements, and they can closely resemble the complexity of the original design. This printed structure can be freestanding and robust immediately after this approximately 30 seconds fabrication time without any post-printing curing. As I explained, improving network uniformity and reducing defect can make hydrogels stronger and delay fracture. But these uniform hydrogels don't have a built-in energy dissipation mechanism, meaning that if there's a defect, it can quickly turn into a running crack and rapid failure. A solution to this problem is to add an energy dissipation mechanism by making interpenetrating networks. This was done in Chapter 6, where an ionically cross-linked sodium alginate was added to the PEG network developed in Chapter 3. The reinforcing effect of adding alginate to the system depends on different factors, such as characteristics and concentration of alginate, the order of network formation, and building blocks forming the PEG network, which all are important to consider when designing hydrogels for different applications. But in general, alginate can dissipate energy by unzipping under stress. This creates a larger deformation zone around the crack tip, reduces the amount of the elastic energy transferred to the crack tip, and slows down crack growth. As I conclude, I would like to highlight the key contributions of this thesis. I demonstrated that network uniformity significantly affects the mechanical properties of hydrogels. Using Thiol-norbornene chemistry, I achieved uniform networks with fast gelation kinetics and tunable mechanics, suitable for various applications, including load-bearing tissues. A combination of fast fabrication, complex geometry, and design freedom can be achieved via volumetric printing and Thiol-norbornene photoresins, which can be very beneficial for the biofabrication community. And lastly, interpenetrating network strategy, besides making these hydrogels stronger, can make them notch insensitive and delay crack propagation. And with that, I would like to give some acknowledgements first to my supervisors, to members of jury, my paranims, all my AFB Biomat OBPC colleagues, collaborators, my students, family, friends. Thank you all, and I give the word back to the prorector.
Thank you very much for your very clear presentation. We will now start with the opposition, and the opposition will be opened by the chair of the assessment committee, Professor Honing, Professor of Analytics in System Imaging at Maastricht University.
Thank you, Pro-Rector. And before we start, dear candidate, congratulations again, but for sure, many, many congratulations of, I would say, pushing the boundaries in hydrogel formation and doing a robust type of work here. And also congratulations to the promotion team with such a perfect candidate. But there's always questions, and let me start with the proposition. So I would ask one of the paranims to read proposition number 10.
Proposition number 10. A PhD is a collection of failed experiments, long days and late nights that makes you resilient, collaborative, a problem solver, a professional learner, and more.
So my question, maybe not to insult you completely, but you had a long days and late nights, so you had a lot of failures.
Yes, of course.
Okay. And you learned a lot of these failures.
Yes, of course.
And that's resilience and collaborative research.
True.
No comments on that. And it's a good journey, or it was a bad journey?
It was a good journey. Highly esteemed opponent. First of all, thank you for your kind words and also for your question. It was definitely a very good journey because, yes, I mean, of course, during your PhD, during the journey, you learn so many things about different topics, which are, like, in the end, related to what you're doing, like, scientifically. But there are also, like, a lot of soft skills that you learn based on these, like, failures in the lab and, like, all the collaborations you do and everything. And I think that's the most, that's even more important than this scientific.
Okay, then I'm happy with your answer because actually you say it's much more difficult. And then that's an entrance in proposition number 2. So maybe one of the paranims can read proposition number 2 and we go into the science.
Proposition 2. Lego seems fun, but wait until you try click chemistry. It lets you bring molecules together simply, quickly, and precisely.
Yeah, Lego. Are you speaking about Duplo Lego or technical Lego?
I don't know, the one kids play.
Okay, so Duplo Lego is for small children, but I can tell you they are trying to put it together for a long, long time. So it's not really quick. No?
The one I was playing with, they were quick.
Yeah? Okay, so, and I was triggered by this because on Sunday I was at Intratuin and I saw even flowers from Lego and they were quite complex.
Yeah.
Okay, so, no, but you said that you had a lot of failures, it was a very difficult journey, and now suddenly you sell me that click chemistry is simple, quick, and precise like Lego, but I think Lego is not precise, or maybe precise, it's absolutely not quick, And for sure, technical legal is not simple. So what's now the truth? Was your PhD a difficult one, or?
It was indeed difficult. I mean, by Lego and easy, I felt like as Lego bricks, you can fit them perfectly together, and like they're fast and efficient. Click chemistry is also can bring molecules together in a fast, efficient way, which also minimizes the side reactions. That's what I meant by that. But reaching to that point indeed was very difficult, like the synthesis protocols and everything. Yes, I had like a lot of failures and yes, long nights.
But can you go into a little bit detail? Because here you explain, you sell, I call it a little bit scientific selling, click chemistry as simple, quick and precise. And then we go to page 253. And then actually you say, it's nice, it's interesting, but to be precise, it says choosing an alternative topology with the thiol instead of the linear architecture leads to, let's say, difficulties in homogeneity. So what I would like to ask you, much of your chemistry is not that simple, and it's highly dependent on the type of chemistry you are doing and the ratio of the building blocks you use or not.
The mechanical properties, you mean?
No, let's say the chemical properties.
They are indeed, yes, you can tune them based on the building blocks and also the chemistry you use, and also like but I think that's the nice thing about this chemistry, that you can really tune the properties by changing these factors.
But there's a lot of factors to understand.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of factors to understand.
And then you make a lot of failures, and then it's not that simple, and it's not that quick.
I mean, making the gels is quick, and it's nice to be able to tune to get these different properties. I mean, yeah, maybe for your specific application, yeah, you have to really tune and study different parameters to get to your application. But like just making them is not difficult.
So the variation in the chemical composition is not always clearly linked to the mechanical capabilities or the properties of the material.
It is.
Directly?
It is linked. Yes, directly.
But that means also when you do the chemistry and click chemistry that you get very homogeneous chemical compositions of your material. Is that what you're looking for?
If you're using a stoichiometric ratio of N group, technically you get I mean, you're minimizing the side reactions. You still have some reactions, some defects on side reactions, but in general, compared to,
that's
for
exactly
example,
what I wanted to know, because as a chemist, I always suppose there's side reactions, and they should disturb somewhere in amounts your properties of your final product.
Yes, they definitely are there, and they affect. But compared to, for example, chain gross polymerization, you have less effects, and you have a more homogeneous structure and better mechanics, comparatively.
So we are getting close there. So I wanted to say and still claim it's not that simple. So you were saying simple and quick, and I say, yeah, it's simple, but maybe it's not that simple. You make it a little bit simple.
Yeah, maybe. I still think they're...
Okay, and now I will try to find the ultimate proof. So we can go to page 83. I think that's one of the pages. And of course, there's NMR, and it's important to look to the NMR, and also especially to the signals which I don't understand. So you assign, let's say, the signals at 4.3, at 3, and let's say more or less 3.7, but I see even a multiplet at 3.8 or whatever, and you did not assign. So actually I see quite some impurities in your product, or where should I assign these peaks to?
There might be impurities, but like those protons are mainly from the backbone.
Sorry?
From the backbone, the blue one.
But which protons there? You selected just some protons which you knew, and then let's say, I cannot see it from this picture, but I would argue it is a quartet or a double doublet. There
might be definitely also some impurities, but like this very large one is from the backbone.
Okay. So then I come back to my last question and try to push you again a little bit, is that when I looked at these impurities in terms of the chemistry, the click chemistry and the photo-induced chemistry, it is quick for sure. To understand it is maybe not that simple. There are byproducts, but you were lucky that these byproducts did not interfere too much with the physical properties of your hydrogels. Is that a good conclusion?
Yes, yeah, these impurities are there and they might affect and like disrupt the uniformity and also like the click chemistry, I mean the reactions. But you can always like try to control them, like by like making the reaction in a more controlled way. For example, like disulfides, I mean, you can also call them side reactions.
No.
You can control them. I didn't control them properly because honestly I was getting nice
because
mechanical.
that did not matter in terms of your.
I was
let's say,
getting nice mechanical properties, and yeah, for my case, yes, I didn't control them, but definitely that's something that you can control by, for example, doing the reaction under inert condition or like or using reducing agent. You can control these defects, but like in the end, yes, they are not like completely 100% uniform.
So we have sufficient stuff for the next few years to discuss on. So thank you, Roderick. Thank you for your answers to the questions.
Thank you, Professor Honing. The opposition will be continued by Professor Graules from the Biomolecule Design Group at the University of Hasselt.
Thank you, Prorector. Dear candidate, let me also join in on congratulating you with your PhD thesis as well as the clear presentation. You're very close to the conclusion of your PhD journey, but we're not there yet, so we want to roast you still a bit. And I want to revisit some of the topics we already discussed during the preliminary defense. And I would like to start off with a seemingly contradiction, let's say, because you focus already today on in your presentation on making these gels as uniform as possible to emulate these extremely tough mechanical properties. But when I look at cartilage, this material is not uniform at all. There is a large degree of anisotropy in this material. So how do you look at that?
Yeah, highly esteemed opponent, thank you for your kind words and also for your question. Indeed, cartilage in general, first of all, is like very complex and yeah, non-uniform. But my intention was like mimicking the mechanical properties of hydrogels by like making these hydrogels more mechanically robust. I think it's like not really easy to mimic these complexities just by having one network. So I think this system can be as a base or foundation, and then you can gradually increase this complexity. For example, by making double networks, interpenetrating networks, adding some other networks that can mimic other properties of a hydrogel, like for example, more cell-friendly, cell biocompatible, which then can act like as a, I don't know, domain for the cells to function well, while the other network, this uniform network, can protect or shield these areas and cells. Or for example, by mixing two different 3D printing technologies, by making multi-materials, you can maybe like volumetric printing and extrusion-based printing, you can make two different type of material and like get closer to this very complex and like inhomogeneous tissue.
I will not go too deeply into the processing, but you also showed in your chapter 5, I think it was, the inclusion of this alginate in your material to increase this or introduce this energy dissipation mechanism. Isn't this then again moving away from the ideal network? And is alginate the most interesting or the most useful way of going down this road?
Indeed, that's completely true, that adding alginate can disrupt this uniformity. But sometimes, as I said, you want to add some features to your hydrogel, and you cannot achieve that with this uniform network. Yes, you can have this uniform network as a base to have nice mechanical properties, but at the same time, you also, as I said, they are not really, they don't have these energy dissipation properties. So if there's a defect, it can just propagate very fast. So like here, then you can add alginate to have this specific property. And like whatever you use is based on the application you want. Maybe you want to make these hydrogels more cell compatible. So maybe then you can think of another network that you can add. It can be gelatin or it can be anything else based on your application. So yeah.
Okay. Then, as you all probably remember from the internal defense, I also really enjoyed the fact that you look into the enzymatic degradation of your materials. And then looking forward towards your valorization, dragging in that chapter as well. So in your outlook, you mentioned the ideal degradation rate would be a degradation time of 2 to 3 months. Is this something that you see feasible with your materials?
Yes, so right now the degradation rate is quite fast, especially at like 37 degrees, the physiological temperature. It's like, I don't know, within 2 weeks, like, so it is fast, but it is for sure something tunable. So something that we have to do is restricting the diffusion of water molecule into the network to control the swelling and then control the degradation rate. And that's for sure possible by playing around with the cross-linking density, maybe using polymers with like more arms, like increasing the cross-linking density, or also entanglement density in general, but also changing part of the polymer chains to, instead of using PEG, using, for example, a more hydrophobic option, like plurinic, for example. Not all of that, because then it causes also new issues. But like replacing some part of that can make them, I mean, by using the same chemistry, they're still degradable, but like you can increase this time.
Okay, but your answer, you set the stage for some follow-up questions. You say that the enzymatic degradation is quite fast, but I would like to argue if this esterase is a valid model for the situation in cartilage.
Not really. I think that would be like without this estrase, like in the real situation in cartilage, it will be a bit slower because that acts like as a catalyst to like really accelerate it. So the real rate would be probably slower, but yeah, it's still. I mean, it's still faster than this like 2-3 months. For, which is needed for cartilage development. So I think it's still needs. I still need to tune this.
And then maybe a provocative statement, but do you really need biodegradation? Because as you mentioned in your presentation as well, cartilage does not regenerate that well. So once it's there, it usually has its very long lifetime. Do we really need materials that degrade in these applications?
For this specific application, maybe not, but also making something which can be durable for like a lifetime, I think that would be also very difficult to make. So at some point you want, so for this strategy, you want to make them degradable, because I don't think they can be mechanically robust for like a very long time. Especially because, like based on the swelling results and data, the mechanical properties also over time decreases. So I think, yeah, that would, for this this specific application that you want to keep them forever, they're not a great option.
Okay, then let's look at the other end of the application. Let's say not the end of life stage, but the application of these materials in vivo. So you also refer to this in your presentation, the injectability of these materials, and you refer to this in your outlook as well, that you have a quite limited processing window, and you suggest some ways to optimize this. So I'd like to dive into that a bit?
Yes, for the PBS cured ones, yes, indeed, there's a very, I would say, limited printing or processing time window. And it is tunable. You can tune it by playing around with the with polymer content or architecture and molecular weight of the polymers. You can increase it, but they are relatively fast. So it really depends on the application. So if you want to like inject the solution into a very small defect, I would say it's fine. But if you need more time, then the other option is using a double barrel syringe. For this, then if you're using that one, then you have to again play around with the formulations to increase the gelation time, because if you use that, then you want something with a very fast gelation kinetic, because like you want to make gels immediately after mixing. The mixing part of these syringes are very small, so you really wanted to have something with very fast gelation kinetics. But yes, it is possible to tune that.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I give back the word to the prorector.
Thank you, Professor Gouders. The opposition will be continued by Professor Madsen, Professor of Nanoscience at the Department of Chemistry at Virginia Tech, and he's present online. The floor is yours, Professor Madsen.
Wonderful. Thank you, Prorector, and congratulations to the candidate on an excellent thesis. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this committee. It was exciting to read about your work. So I'd like to start with a technical question on figure 3.6. That's thesis page 74. And my first question is these green blotches. I don't think these are cells. I think this is something else. Do you have any idea what might be picking up this green stain that is not the cells?
74 or 76?
Yeah, this is figure 3.6.
Mm-hmm. So first, sorry, highly esteemed opponents. Thank you for your question and for your kind words. I think they're cells. They are just like agglomerated, because when I was making the gels, they were also, after swelling, there were some like sort of crack on top of the gel, and they were agglomerating there.
I see. So the cells agglomerate in the cracks. Okay, that leads to my next question. On these hydrogels, you did not include a cell adhesive sequence here, but you did include RGD in the next chapter. Do you think some cell adhesion would have changed the behavior in these hydrogels in chapter 3?
They also have RGD thiol, these hydrogels.
In figure 3.6? Okay, I must have misunderstood. Okay, I'd like to move to chapter 4 on page 130, or page 127, excuse me. So you did some kinetic studies here. You used stoichiometric imbalances to study the kinetics. This makes sense to me because you wanted to achieve some pseudo first order conditions. But the G prime values, the storage modulus values, decreased a lot, I think from 60 to 1.6 kilopascals. So I wonder if this kinetic, what do you learn from this kinetics test when you end up with inferior mechanical properties? What do you learn from this?
So first of all, I did these kinetic studies because like later on I wanted to use those information to process these hydrogels. So that was the main intention. So first of all, based on this, I realized that no matter, like regardless of the formulation, if I change the building blocks or the ratio of the end groups or also the polymer content, they still have, like, gelation point doesn't change that much. So the gel point might change, like they might get faster, slower, but in general, it doesn't change a lot. What changes is actually the G prime plateau, and also the time need to reach to this G prime plateau. So basically, for when you have like more concentration, more polymer concentration, that makes it faster. Or like when you get closer to a stoichiometric ratio, that's also make it faster. The other nice thing about it is like this tunability, that by changing these factors, this G prime can be, and also the other mechanical properties can be tuned.
Okay, thank you. I think the conclusion then is that it's a fast reaction regardless of the stoichiometry. Is that correct? Great. Okay, I have another question on volumetric printing. So in volumetric printing, you are using tempo to control the kinetics and the chain ends, I think, if I understand correctly. I don't do a lot of 3D printing, but I found this quite interesting. But of course, tempo will lead to quite a few dangling ends and then reduce the mechanical properties. How do you deal with this balance of mechanical properties versus control over resolution?
That's actually a very valid point. So in volumetric printing, because you actually illuminate the entire volume of this vial, so it is important to have this non-linear response. And how I address this is by using tempo, a radical scavenger. But the concentration of tempo I use is very low compared to the concentration of the photoinitiator. And I didn't study actually the effect of tempo on the mechanical properties like compression, but I did study the effect of this tempo concentration and the G prime value. So it increases the time needed to reach to this G prime, like the final plateau G prime, but the values are very comparable for this specific concentration of tempo. Maybe at higher concentration, yes, I think that affects the uniformity, but the amount you need for, at least for processing using volumetric printing, is not a lot, and I think it doesn't really significantly affect the mechanics.
Interesting. So this seems to be in contrast to what we've been discussing earlier regarding how perfect these networks are. My understanding from your thesis is that any deviation from a perfect network leads to changes in mechanical properties, usually a decrease in mechanical properties. And adding tempo certainly must create some dangling ends, yet you don't see a change here. So is there a threshold of sort of percentage of dangling ends that you can tolerate without seeing a mechanical property change?
Probably
Can you
yes.
speculate on that?
Probably yes. Yeah, indeed, having this, for sure there will be more defects by adding tempo, but as I said, maybe this concentration is very low to increase this dangling and unreacted chains a lot compared to the formulation without it. But yeah, maybe there's a threshold that like having more effect than this, like above this threshold, then that really affects the mechanics and you can see really visible changes. But for this specific concentration, I didn't really systematically study the effect of tempo, but for this specific concentration, it really didn't have significant effect.
Thank you. That's a very interesting conclusion, I think, because it indicates that you don't need a 100% perfect network, that your network can tolerate some defects, which we know it must have. But typically, as I understand these types of materials, they're viewed as needing to be as close to perfect as possible. And your results seem to indicate that there is certainly some level of imperfection that's tolerated. Okay, I will end my questions here and turn it back over to the prorector. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Madsen. The opposition will be continued by Dr. Van Rijt from Maryland Institute at Maastricht University.
Thank you, Prorector. First, let me congratulate you with the excellent thesis that you've written and also the very nice presentation you gave today. And I also want to extend my congratulations to the supervisory team. So, first, we have a couple of questions more to ask, and actually I want to start with some general definitions, because we are scientists and I think definitions are important. In your thesis, but also in your presentation, you talk a lot about structural deficiencies. Can you define this for me? What are structural deficiencies in the context of hydrogels?
Highly esteemed opponents, thank you for your kind words and for your question. With deficiency, I mean anything in a network can have a negative effect on the final mechanical performance of these hydrogels, such as non-uniformity, for example, having defects or non-homogeneities, which then they can act as a stress concentration zones or preferred area for crack nucleation, or an absence of energy dissipation mechanism in the network, because like the fracture energy, if you think about the fracture energy of hydrogels in general is like a combination of intrinsic fracture energy plus fracture energy from the energy dissipation. And if they don't have this, then the final fracture energy is very low. So by deficiencies, I mean these two factors, or like anything can affect the final properties of hydrogels mechanics.
Thank you. So you would say the imperfections are only imperfections if they relate to a functional outcome?
Imperfections in the mechanical, in the structure, microstructure, that can, I mean, you see the effect on the outcome, yes.
Okay, thanks. In chapter 3, you write, a crucial step towards solving this problem is generating synthetic approaches that enable exquisite control over network architecture. My question is, do you believe you achieved this level of exquisite control? And if not, what would you be needed to reach that goal?
With these chemistries, you can control the network to some extent, for sure. But as I said before, there will be, for sure, still some defects and non-uniformities. I would say, for example, doing the reaction in a more controlled way, or like as an example, this disulfide that I mentioned before, those can be considered as defects, and like working using disulfide, using reducing agents, or doing the reaction under inert condition can solve this. So yeah, playing around with different parameters, you can make this better, but like in the end, there will be defects still.
Okay, so
but they are much better compared to like this random chain growth polymerizations, and you have a better, more clear idea about your network.
So are you saying that it's impossible to get exquisite control?
Yes, it's not really possible to get something 100% uniform.
Okay. So in chapter 3, you show the impact of hydrogel swelling behavior on the mechanical properties, and you mentioned two different cross-linking techniques. So you use UV and PBS. And then you say that the UV cross-link gels exhibited a greater swelling degree, larger mesh sizes, and lower cross-linking density compared to the PBS cross-link gels. But then you still continue in the rest of your thesis with the UV cross-link gels. Can you explain to me why?
Yes. So these UV cured ones, that you were talking about are from third chapter, which are thioline, which I use thioline chemistry. And there, because you have this alkyne and what you get is a mixture of alkyne thiol addition, double addition of thiol to alkyne, and also maybe reaction of this alkyne together. Then you get all sort of different reactions, which then might lead to like more defects. But in the next chapter, I use Thiol-norbornene, and that's way more homogeneous and selective compared to the first one. It's still with light, but homopolymerization normally you don't have much, or it's like very low. And the only possible reaction is the reaction between thiol and alkyne. I mean, the disulfide is still there, but it's way more uniform than the first one. So you can also visibly see from the mechanics that they are very stronger. Yeah. But at the same time, you can control the process also with light, which makes them perfect for processing also.
Okay. Actually, this is a question that came up when you were presenting, because you were saying that your thiol-norbornene is much faster in kinetics, and then you said that this will lead to a more uniform network. Why do you think fast kinetics would lead to a more uniform network?
No, I said they have fast gelation kinetics, and they also can make a uniform.
So it's not coupled to it?
No.
Okay. So I want to ask a more detailed question on figure 4.2b, which is on page 125. So here you look at polymer content and then on the effect on the elastic modulus. And then you see a drastic increase when you go from 25% to 45%. Can you explain why?
25 to 45. Yes, so the moment that you increase the polymer content, you get more cross-linking density, but also a lot of entanglements. Mm-hmm. So they both can be load-bearing and active. That's because that's the reason that you have here. I have a very high modulus.
Okay. So if your ultimate goal is to get the most or the highest mechanical properties, let's say, with these materials, but then at the same time, if you use a higher polymer content, you get smaller pore sizes or smaller mesh sizes. But that then can negatively impact the biological properties. How do you see that? What would be the balance, the ultimate balance between these two properties?
I think it really depends on the application you have. So for this specific, also the mechanical properties, you have to really target your application and then based on that really formulate your hydrogel. For example, this 45% I use this concentration. I have the mechanical properties of this specific formulation here because that's the concentration I had to use for volumetric printing. I needed a very viscous solution, and that's the reason I went for that. Maybe this is not really ideal for when you want to encapsulate the cells, because yes, indeed, that might cause some issues, but for processing, that was, for that specific technique, this was a good actually choice. So it's like all related to the application and what you want to do with your hydrogel.
Okay, thank you. Maybe a last question if we have time. Okay. So this question is more related to your choice of the material, PEG. You write that this is non-immunogenic, but recent studies suggest actually that 30 to 70% of the humans have anti-PEG antibodies, which can reduce the efficacy of these type of materials. What do you think the findings of your thesis can be applicable to other type of polymers and other type of backbones? And if yes, which findings do you think can be translated to other materials?
Other type of PEG base?
No. Just other materials in general?
Yes, I think because it was a fundamental study, especially the mechanical properties part. So this information about uniformity and their effect on the mechanical properties can be useful also for other materials, maybe with the same chemistry, but different materials. But also the volumetric printing part. So right now, the number of resins for this specific application is very limited. So maybe if the PEG is not an option for these clinical applications, but it indeed can give insight to the biofabrication community, like how to process these materials, maybe using the same chemistry as I said, but like with different backbone.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Van Rijt. The opposition will be continued by Professor Kalomaki, Professor of Medical Biomaterials and their applications from Tampere University in Finland, but present here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you also, candidate, for your presentation. So that was very nice to listen, and your thesis is full of nice discoveries. But still, it's time to little bit barbecue with some questions. And I start with warming up a little bit. Why did you choose, and what was the reason to choose linear or armed pegs?
Highly esteemed opponents, thank you for your kind words and also for your question. I wanted to systematically study a structure property of these materials, meaning that by tuning different factors, such as like the connectivity and the building blocks, if I can change the mechanical properties and to what extent. So because of that, actually, I used different topologies like linear or multi-arm to be able to have this, to do this nice systematic study and to be able to tune the mechanic to have a big library of different hydrogels for basically different applications.
Okay, thank you. Esteemed colleague on the other side was asking about the definition. What is your definition for hydrogel?
A hydrogel?
What is hydrogel?
It's a soft matrix made of water, like large amount of water and cross-linked polymer chains.
Okay. And now that I think of many other materials, what I'm more used to, they are natural derived, and they are often having a lot less concentration, lower concentration than you do. So how come you are coming to such high concentrations in your studies, up to 45?
Up to 45, that specific concentration, as I said, was because I needed that high viscosity for processing. So it's basically tuning using different concentrations to get, first of all, to specific mechanical properties or to use it for an application. So like this very high concentration was for being able to process it with volumetric printing.
Are you considering that material still a hydrogel? Because PEG can be also worded to be a polymer.
They are still hydrogel, yes, I do consider them hydrogel because they still have a high concentration of water.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure? Why I'm asking is that typically hydrogels cannot be tensile tested.
Cannot?
They are so soft. So where is the limit in the mechanical properties point of view that the hydrogel turns to be polymer?
I think what defines them is the high concentration of water.
What is the high
That makes
concentration?
them hydrogel.
What is high concentration?
I would say something above 50%.
Practically, since you had 45.
Yes.
Aha, you know how to play this game. Okay, but what if I insisted and say that they cannot be tensile tested, so what would you then?
I
How would you save yourself?
I disagree. I think that you can do tensile tests on hydrogels for sure, even though they are soft. I have very soft hydrogels with very, very low elastic modulus, and for sure I did some tensile tests on them, and yeah, I think you can do tensile on very soft hydrogels.
What was the highest water content that you were able to do?
95%.
Okay, thank you. Now that you think back, you had in many places 3 parallel samples. Was that enough?
Yes, I had a minimum 3 samples for each condition. I think in my case, yes. I mean, the more the better, of course, and more precise. But I didn't see much variation between the samples. So I think, yes, in my case, it was fine. But of course, doing more, you can get more precise results.
How much was your standard deviation typically?
I don't remember by heart. I have to check.
Okay, then we can discuss it later. Then I think, have some time for the question about printing, about volumetric printing, and in page 188 and in figure 5.6, which is, I think, 2 pages later, you comment that with volumetric printing you were obtaining 350 micrometer like fineness or resolution, or what was the exact wording there. So what is the reason for such big structures? Because I understood from your text that you couldn't make smaller or finer.
The resolution. Yes, the resolution, I think the smallest feature I could get was approximately 350. And it's indeed lower than what you can get, for example, with DLP. But the point of volumetric printing is not really, you can have good resolution, reasonable resolution, but the point is fabricating the scaffold very fast and without any supporting elements. So I think that's the advantage. Otherwise, yeah, there were before some conventional techniques such as DLP. But the other reason that I also have these resolutions is, so after you have a vial with the printed structure and you still have some unreacted resin, so you have to remove this printed scaffold and rinse it with water. And with that, because PEG hydrogels normally swell a lot, so these printed scaffolds were also swollen a bit. So I think that also really affected on the resolution. So maybe before swelling, these small features were like even tinier than the resolution that I calculated. So that's also something that it's important to mention, I think. But in general, yeah, what the resolution I got compared to DLP, yeah, it's not comparable. With DLP, you can achieve higher resolution.
So it wasn't anything technical?
No. It's possible to improve it, for sure, but...
Mahsa Ebrahimi, the time appointed for defending your thesis has passed. The degree committee will now withdraw to discuss the quality of your thesis and your defense. I request that you and your company await the results of our deliberations and our return in this room.
All right, please.
The PhD defense has now ended. The degree committee will debate the candidate's performance behind closed doors. This process usually takes about 10 minutes.
Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goals only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. On the line, I know you know that I can't read your mind. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like, my goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side, no place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die.
On the dash, got my laces tied. Long road, I don't waste no time. Break rules because fate decides. With the team and we chase the light. I make a move, fall down, shake it off. I hate to lose, bad branch, break it off. No room for negativity, praise and love. Prepare for deep part cause we're taking off.
Take the mileage, traveling so far from home. Gathering knowledge, other connections. I put the time in to get everything I ever hoped for. It's a challenge and we all in. It's a better future that we go for. And even though these nights seem long, I know that I am never on my own. Know you've won the battle once you've grown. South side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like, my goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side, no place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like, my goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side, no place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile.
The PhD defense has now ended. The degree committee will debate the candidate's performance behind closed doors. This process usually takes about 10 minutes.
South side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like, My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. On the line, I know you know that I can't read your mind. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die.
On the dash, got my laces tied. Long road, I don't waste no time. Break rules because fate decides. With the team and we chase the light. I make a move, fall down, shake it off. I hate to lose, bad branch, break it off. No room for negativity, praise and love. Prepare for deep part cause we're taking off.
Get the mileage, traveling so far from home. Gathering knowledge, other connections. I put the time in to get everything I ever hoped for. It's a challenge and we all in. It's a better future that we go for. And even though these nights seem long, I know that I am never on my own. Know you've won the battle once you've grown. South side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile.
Mahsa Ebrahimi, the degree committee here present has assessed the quality of your thesis and your defense. In view of its positive verdict and taking into account your previous qualifications, the degree committee has decided to grant you the degree of doctor. Dr. Baker is authorized to confer upon you this academic distinction in accordance with Dutch university custom. I invite your supervisor to now take the floor.
Do you promise to work in accordance with the principles of scientific integrity at all times, to be careful and honest, transparent, independent, and responsible?
Yes, I promise.
By the authority vested in us by law, and in conformity with the decision of the committee herein present, I hereby confer upon you, Mahsa Ebrahimi, the degree of doctor and grant you all rights attached by custom and law. As evidence of this, I now present you with the Maastricht side of the degree certificate signed by the rector, the secretary, and the other members of the committee, and affixed with the official seal of the university. I'll invite Louis to come up here and take pictures with this as well. Keep one hand underneath it, hold it, I'll stand on the right side and look on the left side. Just like this.
The floor is to Professor Pitev for the laudation.
Thank you very much. First, I want to start off by thanking all of the jury members. Thanks for being here, from coming from far away. For those of you, for Professor Matson online as well, thanks for all of the attention that all of you paid and the way that you thoroughly read the dissertation and came up with these really thoughtful questions was really meaningful, I know, for myself, but also for Mahsa. To all of her friends and family who could join us as well, thanks to all of you for being here. Those of you online, thanks for following along. Now I'll move to the candidate. And for those of you who aren't aware, this is a very difficult position for me because just 6 days ago, Mahsa was standing right here, and she watched me give a congratulatory speech for someone else. So I have to be very, very careful about what I say here. So I'll say some of the same things. I think that you have a lot to be proud of. This is an amazing achievement, especially looking back myself. I shouldn't do this very often, but I looked back at the project, and it was not very well written in retrospect. And you and Mariana both took it to incredible places that I never could have envisioned at the time. Looking at these pictures that you showed all of us, these amazing structures that you printed in the end, I never could have envisioned it to come to this kind of quality. And the places we're submitting the papers now, I'm extremely proud of, and they kind of represent the pinnacle of my career so far. I think it's all the more amazing because I was also looking back at the first email that you sent me. You were actually the very, very first PhD candidate that I ever spoke with when I started my position here. She sent me an email in November of 2018 looking for a PhD position, and I thought she must be mistaken because she said she wanted to work in my group. And her background was, I have the email here, she, very impressively at that stage, just had a master's degree, but she had already published several papers. One of them was titled, for example, Correlating the Microstructure to Mechanical Properties and Wear Behavior of an Accumulative Back-Extruded Aluminum Magnesium Silicon In Situ Composite. So fitting perfectly with the research that I was envisioning doing. But we made an organic chemist out of you and a polymer chemist out of you in the end. I know it started with some major struggles. I think for the first year that I knew you, I didn't see the bottom half of your face because, as we all can remember, this was a very, very difficult period for Iran in particular, coming at a very difficult time of the COVID pandemic. So you started off a little bit rough, and it was difficult for both of us, and you really powered through and showed that you could do amazing things with chemistry and with polymers, and I'm just super proud of everything you've accomplished. I think sometimes that you could be more proud of yourself as well. I think that still will come into the future. But of course, I'm excited to see what you're doing as she continues in my own laboratories. Moving on, so thank you so much for all the hard work that you've put in over the last 4 years, and yeah, I couldn't be more proud of you, so thanks.
Dear Dr. Ebrahimi, also on behalf of Maastricht University, I would like to congratulate you with the double degree you have acquired from this university and also from the University of Hasselt. I'd like to congratulate your family, friends, colleagues who supported you during this PhD trajectory, present here, but probably also online. I also like to congratulate your supervisors from Maastricht University and from Hasselt University. I'd like to thank the committee members present here, especially the guests from outside Maastricht and Hasselt, Professor Kalomaki and Professor Madsen. Thank you for participating in this PhD defense. Very much appreciated by Maastricht University. You called the members of the degree committee members of the jury. I hope you didn't feel like this was a lawsuit. And I hope you enjoyed the discussions with the degree committee, because they weren't here to prosecute you, but more to discuss with you. You said you had a collection of failed experiments, long days, and late nights. I hope they are over now, but maybe you're gonna miss them, because they're also a part of a nice experience, and they made you grow as a person, undoubtedly. So I hope this will help you in your future career, and understand you stay a little bit in Hasselt. So I wish you a lot of success with your future studies. So with this, we come to an end of this academic session, which I close now. So I would like to ask the audience to leave and go to the